Good morning, and welcome to Humpday, the first news day for Humpday News in the new year. And Happy New Year, by the way. Good morning, Amber. How you doing?
I'm great, Pat. Happy New Year.
Hey, it is because as we were finishing up December 2021, thank God that's over there. It seemed like there was a lot of good manufacturing news coming down the pipelines. Talking to members about how well November went, and we'll get the November USMTO numbers that are coming out on Monday. But as a precursor, they look pretty darn good. And then hearing about what's going on in December. A little bit of a slowdown in December, but I think it probably has to do with people wanting to take those investments they're going to make in December and apply it to 2021 revenue numbers, because those revenue numbers are probably going to get impacted better by a tax exemption than applying to the revenues you made in 2020. So that was good news. And then I guess it was yesterday we got the ISA PM Purchasing Managers Index numbers come out, 67. That's a really good number, the highest we've had since 2018. August of 2018, a month when we had $500 million in orders, largest August I can remember. But we're not going to have a $500 million month in the next 3 months. What the 67 means is that we're as eager about the opportunities over the next 90 days as we were in August of 2018. So we were really going gangbusters in 2018. Supply chains were crumpling because they couldn't get things to the manufacturers to assemble into machines or products fast enough. And we saw that continuing to expand as we got towards the end of 2018. Here, it's slightly different. We've had some really tough times in 2020, but as we finish up the year, it's the 67 is saying that the purchasing managers around manufacturing industries have expectations of some really nice growth in the first 90 days of 2021. I'm gonna have to get used to that. 2021, also on my checks. But that's not the news we want to talk about today, right, Amber? You're on here. You're the political guru for AMT. Today's a special day for a couple of reasons, right?
Definitely. I mean, this morning, all eyes are on Georgia as we collect the results of the Georgia runoff that was held yesterday. Already, Reverend Warnock has beat Senator Lafner by... It was a very tight race. And so the balance in the Senate right now is 49 to 50. We're waiting on the results of the Senator. It looks like Democrats will probably pull that one out too, which means the control of the Senate will shift from Republican control to Democrat control. And power in Washington will rest with the Democrats in Congress and the White House. What does that mean exactly? For people that feel more secure with a more balanced control of government, they'll be happy to know that, a 51 vote majority in the Senate is really not as powerful as it seems. Yes, a new majority leader, Chuck Schumer, would control the agenda and determine what legislation is brought up for consideration. But you still need, for almost every piece of legislation that goes to the Senate, a 60-vote majority to overcome a filibuster and have legislation move forward. So really, what the framers of the Constitution intended for the Senate was to be a more deliberative body and to pass legislation that is more bipartisan. And, that will still be required in a Democrat-controlled Congress. So what are markets thinking today about that? I mean, they definitely do like a balance of power. They're mixed. The Dow is up, the NASDAQ is down. Pat, I don't know what you think about after we get the results, and truly the results are still up in the air. One of the races, the Senator Perdue race, has not been called. But should the power shift, it will likely have an impact, I think, on the markets going forward.
Yeah, well, you're right. I was looking at the opening numbers, and in the first 45 minutes of the bell ringing, there was about a 250 point increase, and it's sitting now around 272, up from where it was as we closed on Friday. So all good news. Again, I think that there's, just changing the year. It doesn't mean the pandemic is gone. We're actually having a lot more challenges with it now than we've had at any other point in the battle since March of 2020. But the vaccine brings a great deal of optimism, and hopefully we don't see anything that would detract from this. But seeing the usual 4-year change in power between one president to the next in an orderly fashion, we hope, will help bolster the confidence in the stock market as well. There are a lot of good things still in store for 2021. But just because they have, if it breaks 50-50 and they've got the vice president, Mrs. Harris, to break the tie, does that mean that all the committee chairmen will be Democrats?
Yes.
So that has a lot. You're up there often. That's where a lot of the work is done, and is in committees. And committees typically decide the agenda of what's going to be the bills, legislation, issues that the Senate or House will see. It's still, you're right. When it comes to the votes, it's not as big a margin as you would like to have, because you need those other 9 people. But at the same time, I think you mentioned it. If you get to set the agenda, that's a pretty big deal.
Now, fortunately, committees, and there are some committees that are more bipartisan than others, but they tend to work together better than when, a piece of legislation would reach the floor and you're voting basically with your party on a lot of issues. But you're right. Mitch McConnell has been a successful majority leader because he has been able to determine really what the Senate votes on. Mm-hmm. And if the control shifts, it will be Chuck Schumer really determining what is considered by the Senate. And, he has a partner in Nancy Pelosi, who was just, reconfirmed as Speaker of the House. Now, there's something else very monumental going on today, and it is the usually ceremonial counting of the electoral votes by a joint session of Congress. This usually goes pretty smoothly. Today, we're expecting some objections to some of the state results. What I think this will do is slow down the inevitable. When you're certifying votes, you need a simple majority of the Congress, and you have Democrats and many Republicans that are in favor supporting certifying these election results and getting on to business in the 117th Congress. So we'll see what happens today. It's a historic moment, really. And, what we're seeing, we've not seen before, and probably will not see again for a while.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope that things get back on a more collaborative effort between the two parties that control our government, and that we see an effort to repair some of the divisions that have been created over the last 4+ years. I've been watching people line up the different kinds of organizational charts, different type of flow charts about how this will work today. But one thing I haven't heard anybody say is how long. I mean, usually it takes about an hour, but how long, once it starts at 1 o'clock today, do you think this could possibly go on for?
That's a great question, Pat. That's one that I've asked myself. Most of what I've been reading and hearing is the certification process starts today, which suggests to me that it may take longer than today to actually get to the final result. Really, everybody is in a wait and see pattern of what the members of Congress will actually do when it comes to the actual vote at 1 o'clock and the certification begins. But come January 20th, we can be almost certain that we will be inaugurating a new president and vice president, and we've got to move from there. And there are definitely places where we can work with the Democrats to further the manufacturing agenda. And one of them is infrastructure. And probably right out of the gate, the Biden administration is going to introduce a big infrastructure package to really start getting this economy moving again. And it will be centered around clean energy. But as you know, Pat, AMT is supporting a very comprehensive infrastructure reform that not only includes transportation, roads, and bridges, but also energy and, also telecommunications. Yeah. So that's a monumental undertaking, but we've got to start somewhere, and it has to be a priority for the country for us to stay competitive.
Yeah, it's certainly at a time when things seemed to stall in the United States back in the late 50s, the Eisenhower administration's infrastructure program, which was, we see it today in the interstate system, but there was a lot more to it than just the interstate system. Like Roosevelt's New Deal program, which developed the Conservation Corps that built all the national parks and the cabins, the trails, the accoutrements that we see there. Eisenhower's infrastructure bill helped build out a lot more than just roads and bridges. And the bill that you're right, the bill that the Biden administration will bring is very similar to the one that was being offered during the Trump administration. It's just as we got into an election year, nothing was getting done. So I hope you're right. I hope this is something we can get going, because not only would this be good for the country, but almost everything that would be touched about an infrastructure bill could find its way back through the supply chain to manufacturing technology. And that's good for all our friends and buddies.
One thing we probably should mention, it happened at the end of 2020, but, Congress did pass a pared down stimulus bill that actually makes the Paycheck Protection Program loans available again, even to companies that may have gotten one before. So that's good news. And, a bigger stimulus package may be in the works with the new administration. So if anybody's interested in that SBA program, they can get in touch with Pat or me, or go to the SBA.gov website to find out more about it.
That's quite a bit of information there in the last 14 minutes. With that, I thank you for joining me today, Amber, and going through this, because I couldn't have done it as well as you've done it.
Happy to be here.
Okay.
Exciting day.
And so until next time, when we have you on a nice Wednesday morning, have a great time. Be safe. Happy New Year, and be busy.